So that was a recording by the Fairfield police that were given an unusual assignment on a Monday after a resident reported a possible encounter with a werewolf. The encounter occurred around 6:30 a.m. near a residence along the 1600 block of Wood Creek Drive. An eyewitness said she heard growling coming from some shrubs near a daycare center and thought it might be a werewolf, according to the Fairfield Public Safety Dispatcher. Werewolves are exceedingly uncommon, especially during the day. They usually come out at night, and typically only during a full moon event, right? The next full moon was scheduled then for Saturday, October 31st, 2020, due to the AccuWeather reports. The outcome of Monday's investigation into the alleged werewolf sighting was not immediately known, though it's reasonable to presume that the growling creature was probably a cat, possum, or raccoon, right? We don't know. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Lake Files. Tonight, we have a rather creepy story, to say the least. And some of y'all who've been following this channel know that these particular cryptids get my hair raised and I get something in the pit of my stomach. They're just real scary. So we're having a snowstorm here in the Adirondacks. State of emergency, schools have been closed. Of course, there's many people still at work. Things are pretty much running as usual. But yeah, so let's get into this one. This one takes place in southern Illinois. And a resident recalls a harrowing werewolf encounter that he had as a child. His wife also had seen a similar canine cryptid in the same area several years later. So the following account, I'm sure most people laugh when they hear stories like these, but I just can't. I was face to face with what I can only describe as a werewolf in 1987. Here in southern Illinois, I was only 10, but I know what big dogs look like, and actually owned a huge St. Bernard at the time, and this thing dwarfed him. I was walking alone down a path that parallels some thick woods, and when I heard movement in the brush, I stopped and looked toward the noise, and to my absolute horror, a huge, black wolf-looking head came out of the brush, and it was looking right at me. I don't know if it was on 2 legs or 4, but it was taller than I was. I was only 10, so I was about 4.5 feet tall or so. Suddenly it came bursting out of the woods towards me, and I thought I was dead. I don't know what happened at that point, but obviously it didn't grab me. All I can remember from that part is that it was in my face, and then it wasn't. My mom remembers seeing me running home with a look of terror, so she met me outside. She knew something bad had happened, but didn't know what it was. She said I was shaking uncontrollably, and I had wet myself, and kept saying a werewolf just tried to take me. She says that she doesn't know what I encountered, but I was a tough kid who was always outside and wasn't prone to making up stories. She says the next day I brought home a book from the school library titled Meet the Werewolf and became obsessed with anything werewolf related after that. I wouldn't go outside for a long time after that, even when all the other kids were outside. We moved the next year to a city 100 miles away, and I got back to my normal again. I moved back to the same rural town when I was 18, and I have lived there ever since. It's a small town on Rend Lake in Jefferson County, Illinois. I know what I saw, and I will never forget its face, as it wasn't a dog. I go into the woods quite a bit alone, and sometimes I do get a lot worried. But I also always carry a gun just in case. Be safe when alone in the rural areas because these dogman things are real. My late wife had a daytime encounter with what she called a 7-foot-tall black werewolf standing on 2 legs in 2001, just about 5 miles where I had my encounter. The only difference is that she was driving and had the relative safety of being in a car. It proved to me that they do exist and are in the area. So at least I know to be careful when in the woods instead of being like everyone else who don't have a clue until they are face to face with one. It's scary to know they are real, but I think it's better to be aware of them. So I know to take precautions when in the woods. And I tell anyone who will listen, despite being laughed at by some. But those who know me best know that I am not crazy, and I do not make up stories, so they believe me. I think telling them will keep them out of harm's way, or at least make them be a little more cautious being out alone. Also, my uncle had a Bigfoot encounter in 1981 while in the outskirts of Shawnee National Forest. He never went back and is afraid to be outside after dark. If there are any woods out around, he is 60 now, and he's still scared of that thing that don't exist. He's a huge guy himself, but is terrified of seeing that thing again. The funny thing is that he actually laughed at me when I told him about the werewolf-looking thing that I almost got me. I think that he thought I was joking at first, but I told him just like that big thing you imagined, and he changed his tune. He said it probably was a Bigfoot that I saw, but it was most certainly not. It was a giant black wolf that was taller than me, not a gorilla-looking thing.